Everyone, and welcome back to the Alpha Art Gallery's Meet the Artist series. My name is Elena Soboleski, and I'm excited to be joined by Fred Doerfler, an exhibiting artist in an upcoming New Brunswick Art Salon exhibition, Reflections of the Living World. Hi, Fred. How are you doing today?
Well, hi, Elaine. I'm just wonderful. Thanks. How are
Mhm.
you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for
Good.
asking. I guess to start off with, your professional background is in the medical field as a physician. How did you come into the digital photography, and what role did or does your scientific background play in your shaping your artistic approach?
Well, that's a lot of things to think about, and I haven't thought about it too much. Always been inclined artistically when I was younger, being in playing music, saxophone, and also interested in abstract. I guess that comes from my mother. She had some abstract artwork and jazz. I performed as a high school student, the jazz tenor saxophone. And then of course got away from it. I did some messing around with a camera when I was my dad's camera, but it was expensive to develop. That was film, and took several pictures, but never really thought about it as anything serious. Then I get into medical school as a physician, and looking back, well, now I'm retired, but I've gotten back into photography. I got interested when my kids got older, they were in sports particularly. I wanted to be able to capture those moments. And I wanted, of course, needed a long lens, so I got my DSLR, and then I realized, oh boy, I can learn a lot real quick, much quicker than film, because film, you had to take notes, you developed it maybe a week later or 2 weeks later. Anyways, so this was instantaneous, and then I realized, oh, this is pretty nice, and I always had a leaning towards landscapes, also and abstract, and started doing that, and just the learning, and then I was encouraged. Well, my so being a physician shaped my photography skills by really seeing the big things, but also seeing the small things and being able to put things together. The large view, the forest and the trees. And actually seeing both and seeing what other people maybe not see. And well, as a physician, you tend to always looking for the diagnosis of unusual things, but knowing that it's most likely something common problem with the patient. But every day, every patient is different, and that's sort of the approach, I guess, as I do photography. Every time I go out, every time I take a picture, it's different, and I look for the more unusual, the ambiguous things. And photography, I find it quite a bit, find a lot. The so, but being learning as a physician, training as a physician, and years of physician, you get discipline, but you also get to explore, other, diagnose your, detective basically, and that's sort of like photography, detective work. At least the way my approach is trying to figure out what's interesting, what's different. Anyways.
Yeah, that's a really interesting wait, I heard. I also feel like your music, that's you have that like creativity already like instilled with you. So that's really interesting. Your work often transforms familiar cityscapes into abstract, painterly compositions. What interests you about defamiliarizing the urban environment? And what do you hope viewers notice when they see the city through this new perspective? And since you're based near Pittsburgh yourself, do you experience the city differently when you photograph it?
Well, these are some questions I didn't really think about. And so it's interesting. It got me thinking a lot. That we when we walk through the city, the buildings are there. We don't think much of it. A lot of the architects have of course, the more modern buildings have a lot of glass, and purposely to reflect the city and make it prettier. But when you walk through the city as a photographer, looking at the images, some of them just really wow you, and you get these really unusual shapes, and not on all buildings, but several buildings you get these unusual shapes, and it really it destabilize your vision. You're looking at this, what is going on there, and then it's the buildings are stable, but then there's instability. We all know buildings don't last forever, right? And it's just like the images, as you walk and you see the image change on the glass. It's unfamiliar. It's unstable. It destabilizes the person's vision. People looking to see what is it that I see? Why is it doing that? And so I guess that's what I want viewers to see, the beauty, but also well, not the instability, but the distortions. And, it also slows the viewer down. Definitely, when they're looking at my images or they're looking at the building, it slows the viewer down and to really take a look of what is really there. And it's the city's more than just a bunch of buildings. It's actually many parts is very pretty.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you were going to say something. I was
No,
going to answer the
I was gonna say you're very successful in trying to capture that like
Yeah, it worked
familiarity.
out pretty good.
Hmm, yeah.
Well, so as far as how I experience the city differently, yeah, I mean, I definitely now look beyond just the building, and no matter where I am, and look and see what's unique about the city besides just the buildings are unique, but what am I seeing? And really, what did the architect intend,
Mhm.
with that building? What because architects design, I believe they design the building with knowing what other buildings are around. And so, so I don't know. I hope that helps the listener understand a little bit of what I
Yeah,
do.
that was wonderful. What first drew you to the idea of architecture, not just as a subject, but as a kind of collaborator or like co-artist in your urban reflection series?
Well, that's an interesting picture too. Well, one of my interests as when I was young was also architecture, interestingly. And my grandfather was an architect. So architect is not something, unusual to me or foreign to me. I've been around the thoughts and the thinking about architecture through the family. And so I guess it was just natural for me to think doing architecture pictures. But then looking and see when I really look at the when I really went through, sit in Pittsburgh and looking at pictures, trying to figure out what I can do that's different, then I realized, wow, there's a lot of images, a lot of reflections here that are very, very cool. So I really didn't think about being a co-artist until I was looking for these pictures, and it was on the top floor of a parking garage. That was only fourth story, only four levels, and I go up there and I see this reflection of PPG building. It was interesting. I was just going up figuring, oh, I'll just see what's up there. What the heck. And I walk up there and it was just powerful, just wow, this image, reflection, which is one of the ones in the exhibit. And then I looked and I thought, wow, this is just something. And I'm going to have to do more of this. Of course, I got chased off of the top of there was no cars up there. I got chased off, but I got many pictures before I finally left. And I think that's when I realized that these buildings have more than just a building, more than just glass. So then I started looking for more reflection, and I found quite a few over the course of a few years. So I guess that's probably when it started.
That's great. Yeah, your reflections seem particularly tricky to capture considering factors like shifting light and weather changes. What is your method behind capturing these ephemeral moments? Does capturing these portraits of the city feel similar to capturing those of a living being, where timing is like critical?
Well, yeah, I mean, doing portraiture and doing streets, timings are critical, of course, and lighting, of course, is always important no matter what portraiture. And you have to get for portraiture. I don't do a lot of it. The little bit I have, of course, you have to have the lighting right to be able to, so the viewer knows what you're trying to reveal of that person. But buildings are similar because you got to have the right light for the reflection, of course, like all reflections, and you have to have buildings around for the sun to bounce off of, so you get the reflection. And it has to be sunny, which is unusual that's different than doing portraiture, right? You want it sunny, and you don't, of course, want the real high. Well, it depends on where the building is. Sometimes you have to have the high sun because otherwise the sun won't get down into that street. So yeah, its timing's important, the weather, the season, the angle of the sun to the building, all that is has to be considered. You know, you want some clouds, but you don't want completely clouds, which often happens in Pittsburgh. So that doesn't work because then it just looks muddy. So I mean, I've been on part of some this same building on one side where there's no buildings on the other side, or very low ones, and it's nothing. There's no reflections there worth taking a picture of, believe it or not. Well, maybe some people going by, but not of anything that's real, not my style of the the warping and that and the distortion. So yeah, so it's a little bit, so it's different. You know, that's the technique.
Yeah, it sounds like it takes a lot of patience, right? And then like getting that right moment.
Yeah, yeah. You walk around, you have to stand there. And look and see where that, if you see that reflection, if it's worth, and then you just walk a little bit to get the reflection in the right place of all the steel that's in the window. So because you want to get the right things in the right place. So there's a little bit technique, a little bit thinking.
Yeah,
So that takes a while.
yeah, but has there been days where you've planned to go out and like I want to take some this would be a great day, but like it just didn't work out, or you
Oh,
always
that has happened.
yeah.
That has happened. Can't really tell. It was probably a few years ago. But yeah, it was too bright, or I
Mhm.
misjudged the angle of the sun. Sometimes the sun the sun is actually reflecting off the buildings, and part of the building. Yeah, that doesn't look good. So, but then you'd be surprised that something you find something to take a picture of. So
Yeah,
to
that's
capture.
great. Your work includes both travel and urban photography. Do the different subjects require different photographic strategies or like ways of seeing?
Yeah, yes and no, I guess. I mean, I'm no expert by no means on this. You know, the forest, well, there's patterns, right? I mean, the forests have patterns, city streets have patterns, and even these abstracts have patterns, the ones, off the reflections, and you're looking for the pattern. So in those ways, it's similar. The light, of course, changes how any of those, the street, the forests, the landscapes, that's very important, of course, in any image you take. And then, of course, you have to know how to handle the camera to get it, and where I'm positioned, even up and down. If I handheld it or if I'll use a tripod and put it up high, it will change. Just similar to any landscape. The street photography, yeah, sometimes, I mean, a little bit I've done, you have to be quick, you have to be there right at the moment. It's probably more instantaneous than the reflection. Reflection will stay there for a while, as long as the sun isn't blocked by a cloud. That happens once in a while. You get a cloud go by.
Yeah.
You have to wait for the sun to reveal more of the reflection. Let me see here. And you really have to slow down, just like doing landscape photography. You really have to slow down when you're doing photography in this as far as reflections. Street
Mhm.
photography, I mean, I'm not one that does a lot of it, but you probably have to be a little bit quicker, be ready any moment. This is probably what I do is probably more along the line of landscape photography. I have a little bit more time, be contemplative, figure out my position, where I want to get it from, how I want the reflection to look, and then how I'm going to process it. Whether I can. The angle is important. I don't want to get too much of an angle.
Mhm.
So yeah, but sometimes if you try to reduce the angle, then you lose the reflection. So then you got to think about, well, can I fix that angle in Photoshop? Yeah, maybe. Which is that's a little bit different than landscape and street. You don't
Mhm.
really want to. You can, I think, you can fix some of it, but you don't want to do too much of that in these other genres, from what I understand. And you have to really look past. You have to look past and through the window. Well, I shouldn't say you don't look through the window. You're looking like at that surface between the window and the interior of the office. Yeah, one time I was looking at this window, trying to get a reflection of a building I haven't taken pictures reflection of, yeah, yeah, people were heckling me, like, what are you doing? And they didn't see they had no idea what I was looking at. And you couldn't see in the building. I mean, it was,
Right.
you couldn't see anything in the building. But it was kind of goofy. But it was interesting. They didn't see what I saw, what I was looking at, and they had some preconceived ideas. But so it takes, you gotta, like landscape, you really gotta look for the composition. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like you pick up like those patterns in just like the back of your mind, just like if you're just walking a normal day or out traveling? Is it just now like second
Well,
nature?
now in the last few years when I travel, I definitely look for those reflections, and I, when I'm traveling the street, a lot of my tr when I travel all over the place for a variety of different photography opportunities, not only just travel, but I also, have done some wildlife also. So travel, so I am looking for, I do look for, I guess really when I'm traveling, I look for things that are more unusual, and not necessarily always reflections,
Mhm.
but more unusual, unusual things. And of course, I'll take the iconic photo because you're there, you have to. But then I look for some more unusual things, and reflections are on the list, unusual lines and colors and things like that. So yeah, so traveling, I really try to think through my head a list of things to capture.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Finally, is there anything we haven't covered about your practice, philosophy, or any of your work that you would like to share?
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly not that, not an expert in any of this. Really, I think I'm probably a newbie. But I really encourage photographers, interested in what I do, these types of pictures, just to, don't approach the image with a preconceived, don't approach the location with preconceived idea because it just doesn't happen. You have to be fluid. I mean, your eye really has to be open to anything that goes on in capture and be willing to surprise yourself and explore and take the pictures and when you get them home, maybe they'll work out, maybe not, but then you'll be able to, person will be able to learn and go do it next time. So encourage you to observe and allow the image to reveal itself and be ready.
Yeah, that's great advice, and hope people will take that. Well, Fred, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, and I had a
Well,
wonderful
thank you
time.
very much.
Yeah, learning about your creative world, your process of transferring Pittsburgh modern architecture into like the shifting compositions of abstract forms reveals so much, preserving the authenticity of a city and turning like the familiarity into a creation of art and reflection. So we're so honored to feature your work in our exhibition, and we look forward to sharing your vision with our community. And have a wonderful rest of your day, Fred. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you very much, Elaine. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it. This is exciting for me.
And we're excited to have you.